Hello, this is Johan. Hope you're having a good day. This is another UFO story, Nordic UFO story, and it's from 1981, and it's from Norway, and it was observed at night in a small little city called Arendal. And the nature of sighting: various light forms together with cigar and saucer-shaped objects. Okay, let's start. Around the little town of Arendal in southern Norway, there was a tremendous UFO flap during the last 3 weeks of November 1981. Strange aerial phenomena were observed night after night in several areas of the city, and 5 films of transparencies were taken with a telephoto lens, showing many bizarre light forms. A total of 78 pictures were made. Only 25 were good enough to reproduce, but they clearly show the light forms of the UFOs and other strange phenomena in connection with them. Many of the pictures contain beautiful colors. It all started when a young family saw several UFOs night after night in Strømmen at the west side of Arendal. On Sunday, the 8th of November, one of these objects came quite close. About 3:45 p.m. this Sunday, the husband, his wife, a brother and a niece were standing on the veranda, looking towards southwest where the UFOs actually appeared, coming in from the ocean and moving northwards. At this particular moment, all lights in the apartments were turned off. Venus stood low in southwest, and the first UFO came up a little to the right of the planet. The object flew up, down, and in every possible direction, performing some sort of irregular dance and flashing with a bluish, quivering light. Sometimes the light flashed strongly, sometimes it was weak. The light varied from blue to green and yellow-red. The flashes of light were mostly weaker than those from an airplane, but sometimes, often after 6 or 7 small blinks, they were so bright that great parts of the clouds were lit up, and even the ground below was illuminated by flashes which resembled those from a flashgun. After a little while, the UFO went towards the south and disappeared. A little later it came back from the southeast, and the first occurrence they noted was a very strong flash, much brighter than usual, and then it came right towards the veranda. The object passed them at a distance of 500 to 800 meters, as they guessed, and was then clearly visible. On top was a dome which seemed lit with a yellow-white light from inside. Below the dome was a row of squares which seemed to be 1.5 times as high as they were wide. They looked like windows, since light shone out of them, but they could see nothing inside at this distance. Below the row of squares was a circular or oval body. Below this again was a ring of lights, red, green and blue, which seemed to be rotating. The sight was both beautiful and repulsive at the same time. During the few seconds when the strange object was at its closest, they could see a cone of light emitted from the side tapering down and backwards in a curve. Naturally, the witnesses were quite alarmed. This is a drawing of the object as the witnesses saw it. Looks like a mushroom with some strange lights. At last they telephoned UFO Norge representative Hans Aas, who lives on the east side of Arendal. He immediately started to climb a hill behind his house to see if the UFO was visible from his point, 8 kilometers east of the observers. After a while he reached a suitable observing place, and he could now see the UFO with his bare eyes, as well as through 7x50 binoculars. This evening there were several sightings, and Mr. Aas could follow them from his observation site as a small light points dancing in the sky, sending out violent bursts of light in different colors. It was his first UFO sighting. Being very upset, he ran home to phone me, Arne Thomassen, leader of Division South UFO Norge, and also some people living west of Arendal, to find out the position of the object, which seemed to be a few kilometers west of the city. On Monday night, the day after these incidents, Harald Færnes on his farm at Vegårshei, northeast of Arendal, observed a saucer-shaped object at an estimated distance of about 300 meters. Together with his wife, he witnessed its flight, which it emitted a powerful white light and traveled in jumping movements and sharp angles, 90 degrees mostly. Thursday, the 12th of November, was a very special day. 4 young men at Blakstad, north of Arendal, saw a UFO about 100 meters above a nearby hill. It moved soundlessly, and at the lower part were 4 lights in a square. 2 big lights in the back and 2 small lights in the front of the object. The time was 11:30 p.m. The same evening, Hans Aas, Alf Thomassen, and I drove out to the young family in Strømmen with binoculars and a good camera. And there I shot my first 15 UFO pictures. Some of the pictures were really good and contained a number of interesting details. The UFOs, with their sharp flashlight blinks, had flashed themselves onto the film, so to speak. Clearly visible were also a number of seemingly cylindrical clouds surrounding some of the weaker blinks in blue, orange, and green colors. In addition to these observations, there were also another truly remarkable one, involving a huge cigar-shaped object with a big red light in both ends. It seemed that this object may appear on at least some of the pictures. The report is as follows. The observers, Mr. and Mrs. Bjørnsen, and their daughter, live at a little farm 4 kilometers northwest of Arendal, about 1 kilometer off the roads. On Thursday the 19th of November at 6:20 p.m, the man went outside the house to check the water supply. They had only moved in 4 days previously and had heard about the many recent observations of blinking objects. So they looked up in the sky now and then. It was a calm and cold evening with bright starshine. Suddenly he became aware of a light in the eastern sky, blinking and pulsating fast and irregularly. The lights moved up and down with a blue blinking, sometimes weak and sometimes very strong, and after a little while it disappeared towards the east. Now and then the blinks were so powerful that the ground around the house was lit up, as if someone was using a big flash gun out in the woods, far from roads and far from any electric outdoor light. They also stated that it did not resemble the distinctive flashes of distant lighting that can be seen in the autumn. The house is situated on a high spot surrounded by low hills and forests. In front of the house, grassy fields run down towards Lake Blågestad. To the northeast there are small islands and hills with low pine trees. The family now turned off all lights in the house and sat down behind the window, watching the sky. After an hour of patience waiting, the UFOs appeared again. Suddenly, a shivering yellow light appeared over the southern hills. The object rose and fell, and the light shifted from yellow to blue. After a little while, it soared rapidly to an altitude of 45 degrees, and at the same time, another object came in from the northeast and stopped at the same altitude. Then, a huge greyish object came in from the south and passed within 50 meters of the house, and glided silently towards the lake along the edge of the fields. Over the lake it descended slowly, so it was possible to observe it, with the island and pine trees as a background. Distance was then about 200 to 300 meters. At both ends they could see a very big red light, and on top of it they claimed there was something like a bridge. The light from the two red spots was very unfamiliar, and they had difficulties in describing it. In the southeastern part of the country, this cigar-shaped phenomenon had been seen a few years ago, and then too the witnesses noticed the very odd red lights and reported that there seemed to be something rotating inside them. It was a great shock to the family to see this strange huge UFO, with its dark and silent body and clear red lights. They thought for a while that it was an invasion, and turned on the radio for a kind of message that one would expect to get under such circumstances. Over the water, the cigar changed course and headed slowly towards the northwest. And at the same time the two UFOs on each side of the house started to move. They flew side by side out over the lake and disappeared behind the island in the northeast. This led to the conclusion that the three objects were in contact with each other, moving in a united formation. Here we have a drawing of the movement of the object. And the story continues. Mr. Bjørnsen had not previously believed very much in what he had heard about UFOs, but apart from that he had an open-minded attitude to the phenomenon in general. Mrs. Bjørnsen had been very skeptical, but now they both said that their lives would not be the same after this event. The same evening at about 8 o'clock the huge cigar glided towards the center of Arendal. A driver told me this at the same time as a friend of mine got the first telephone report from the family north of the city. The object seemed to be identical with that seen by Bjørnsen family 40 minutes earlier. In order to rule out the possibility of reflections, the driver rolled down his window and then saw the object move over a factory. It was of the same length as the buildings and headed right towards the center of the city. The witness wanted to be anonymous, which one can understand under such circumstances. In close connection with this last observation, there were also a lady located elsewhere in the city who had seen the strange object coming towards her. Just before reaching her, it seemed the cigar disappeared in another direction. She doesn't believe in flying saucers, but it was impossible for her to figure out what this phenomenon could have been. Unfortunately, they didn't provide any actual pictures in this report, which I find somewhat disappointing. I would like to see some of those pictures, of course. But I do believe I have a little movie clip, the investigator talking about it. I will post it at the end of this video. So, here we have some illustrations about what they saw. Cluster of small objects, red blinks. This looks quite familiar. This is has to be a time lapse of some sort, of a light. You can see how it moves through the atmosphere. It kind of reminds me of a picture taken from Hessdalen, the official UFO hotspot in Norway. So, yeah, and here we have a map over Arendal and the surrounding areas. And his final statement: many speculations can be made regarding these pictures and the additional observation made by people around the Arendal district. Whether Arendal was visited by aliens in their spaceships, or there is a more down-to-earth explanation, one can only guess. One thing is for certain: the UFO wave over Arendal is not yet explained in terms of natural or man-made causes. Until this happens, we must suppose that yet more circumstantial evidence has been added to the growing complexity of the UFO enigma. Yeah, I can't help but think about the Colaris case, where in Brazil, this remote place called Colaris, suddenly they have had an influx of strange lights and objects in the sky, and these lights actually interacted with the people, burned people, and it became really crazy. But the interesting thing about it is that many of those objects, like this one for example, resembles the drawings from Colaris. And also, I believe I've seen some drawings of such object like this too. It resembles some of those pictures, so I'm just wondering, maybe it was the same phenomenon. You should go and watch that clip. I have a little movie I made about it, on what happened over there. Pretty crazy. Okay. Well, that's all for today. I'll be back. Have a nice day. This man has photographed several UFOs and light phenomena over Norway during the last 15 years. The first time I saw and captured really good images of the phenomena was in Arendal, 1981. The family I visited had seen UFOs every night for about a week, and that evening and night became an exciting one for all of us. We captured a cigar-shaped object with red blinking lights. It moved in a strange fashion, going slowly up and down as it went along. It was followed by several rectangular objects, with 4 lights attached to each one of them.
Rektangulære objekter med 2 store lys bak og 2 små foran på undersida.